All right, tonight it appears the No Borders mob is winning the propaganda war. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Another deadly shooting in Minneapolis. This time, Border Patrol agents opening fire on a 37-year-old anti-immigration protester who showed up armed and got right in their faces. And the developments from this today have been something to see. Tonight, investigators trying to determine if and how Alex Pretti's pistol may have fired as officers tried to detain him over the weekend. And of course, the left has erupted over this story, this second death in Minneapolis, claiming that Pretti was murdered in cold blood, using this to again demand that ICE and Border Patrol pull out of Minnesota. And tonight we're hearing that Greg Bovino is leaving Minneapolis, which, to be honest, feels like a surrender to the chaos and a surrender to the agents of this chaos. We've got Trump saying today that he had a great call with Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, a mayor who should be in jail for clearly stirring up an insurrection against the enforcement of essential federal immigration laws that the majority of Americans still support and want to see implemented. You've got Republican Bill Cassidy claiming the credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake after this second shooting. James Comer, the congressman, says if local leaders intend to put ICE in harm's way, the president should consider pulling them out, leaving, a surrender, a capitulation. Let's hope this isn't the beginning of a major capitulation, because think of the ammunition that the White House and Republicans would be giving to these vile people that we have been watching. Take a look. Just showing you some of last night when rioters violently attacked a hotel where ICE agents have been staying in Minneapolis. This is what it looks like. This is the chaos that they bring everywhere that they go. A CBP officer over the weekend had a finger nearly bitten in half as well, a picture here that we have blurred. These are not protesters. These are left-wing anarchists. And the fact that the administration appears to be bargaining with the people who have weaponized this mob is frankly ridiculous. This is something that needs to be actively squashed, not reasoned with. And the people that have caused this need to go to jail. Take a listen to the governor, Tim Walz, over the weekend, very casually comparing ICE and Border Patrol, agencies that have been around for a long time and have operated under Democrat presidents and Republicans, still doing the same job. They are now Nazis in the eyes of Tim Walz.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota. And there's one person who can end this now.
This idiot in Minnesota comparing the deportation of illegal immigrants back to the country that they're from to the hunting of Jews all throughout Europe in the Second World War. That is the reason this is happening. He is the reason Minneapolis, Minnesota is the reason and the place this is happening. There is no other reason, and it's not happening anywhere else in America because no other state is run by people as desperate and as reckless as Tim Walz and Jacob Frey. And they should not be negotiated with. They should not be bargained with. The brainwashed pawns who are now risking their lives attacking federal agents with guns in their hands or guns in their pockets, those people are the sacrificial lambs for these mundane politicians who simply need a distraction from a massive fraud scandal. They have been weaponized by people like Jacob Frey, Tim Walz, imagine being weaponized by people this useless, and also the lieutenant governor of the state, Peggy Flanagan. Take a listen to this.
If you are sick and tired of your government being ransacked by Donald Trump and his minions, generally being uncool with the fact that our neighbors are being disappeared, P.S. without due process, it is just called kidnapping, then show up and use your voice. Put your body on the line.
Kidnapping. What was it called when it happened under Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, other Democrat presidents? It didn't have the same term, I guess, Peggy. Put your body on the line, she says. Two already have. Imagine the relief for Tim Walz when he saw this story of this shooting on Saturday. Another week talking about ICE and not the billions in fraud that ended his career and threatened his freedom if he is convicted on charges of what it looks like is a scheme that he allowed to happen and was happy to allow happen as billions were stolen from the American people. That's what this is. This is manufactured outrage as a political distraction. But it's also a story that's clearly hurting the Trump White House politically. And I think that's what we're seeing today. And everybody is ganging up on this because it's fresh meat. Obama is chiming in from his $20 million house on the migrant-free white utopia known as Martha's Vineyard, saying the killing of Alex Pretti is a heartbreaking tragedy. It should also be a wake-up call to every American, regardless of party, that many of our core values as a nation are increasingly under assault. ICE is doing the same job today as it did under Barack Obama. The same job. Implementing federal immigration laws. Nothing has changed. Here was Barack talking about those laws 13 years ago.
I'm the President of the United States. I'm not the Emperor of the United States. My job is to execute laws that are passed. And Congress right now has not changed what I consider to be a broken immigration system. And what that means is that we have certain obligations to enforce the laws that are in place, even if we think that in many cases the results may be tragic.
Have to enforce the law. The law is the law. And Barack Obama oversaw the deportation of millions of people with these exact same tactics. And nobody batted an eye, the same way nobody bats an eye in any other state that's not run by people like Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, who come on TV every single day and say this insane stuff. Over the weekend, many on the left attempted to claim that ICE is harassing Minnesota for political reasons, and that's the only reason that we're seeing so many ICE agents in Minnesota. A simple look at the numbers debunks that ridiculous claim. Minnesota is nowhere near the top of the list for the states that are getting the most attention from ICE, the most deportations, including, by the way, the top two are red states. So it doesn't make sense that this will be political, obviously. Thousands of deportations are happening and nobody ever even talks about it because Florida and Texas leaders aren't telling their people to break federal laws and risk their lives, claiming the Trump Nazis are stealing innocent people, kidnapping, disappearing innocent people. You're not hearing that from the leaders of Texas and Florida. So people know maybe I shouldn't go jump right in front of ICE agents, scream in their face, get between them and the job they have to do, and also maybe I'll bring a gun as I do that as well. Because at what point did that become okay? Second Amendment or not, you don't go pick on the cops with a gun in your pocket. You just don't do that. You don't go stop the cops from doing their job with a gun in your pocket. It's just not smart. Claiming children, like Tim Walz did, are terrified to go outside. And the next Anne Frank story is going to be in Minneapolis. And they wonder why people are getting themselves killed to stop the fascist, terrorist ICE agents from deporting illegal immigrants as they have done for decades in this country. Congressman Brandon Gill joins us now to talk more about this. And I want to start, sir, Bovino leaving Minneapolis feels like a capitulation to the mob. What are you hearing about what's happening tonight?
Well, Tom Homan is coming in. I don't think that this is a president who's going to capitulate to the left-wing mob in any way. We're going to continue to uphold the law. We're going to continue to deport illegal aliens. And we're not going to allow left-wing rioters and agitators to stop the president from carrying out the lawful agenda that he was elected to do. But I think that if you back up here, you can see that what the left is doing is they're recognizing that immigration enforcement to them is a politically existential problem. They've spent years importing as many illegal aliens as they possibly could into the United States. They wanted those illegal aliens to impact congressional apportionment, to give blue states more congressmen than red states. They wanted to provide a path to citizenship, amnesty for these illegal aliens, to eventually allow them to vote, or to allow them to come into the United States, get on the dole, and vote illegally. That's been part of their political playbook, and we're not going to tolerate illegal immigration anymore. We're going to enforce our laws. So I expect this president to continue carrying out these deportations and doing what he told the people he was going to do.
I would expect that as well, but I think it feels like something has changed with this second shooting, and I don't think that I don't think this is the fault of Border Patrol. I think this is what happens when you weaponize crazy people and you tell them that these agents are Gestapo and fascists. People do crazy stuff, and then people end up getting killed. But I think this second death has clicked something inside this administration, and I wonder if they're going to attempt to soften here for a second. He's talking very nicely about Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, two people that I think belong in jail for the things that they have said in that city over the last month. And if you look at the polling, the majority of Americans still want all illegals deported from this country. They went through the polling, and it's like from 4 different outlets: New York Times, CBS, ABC, a number of different outlets say 55-60% of Americans still want every illegal deported. But it seems like these rioters have made this so chaotic and so messy that they've managed to win at least this battle in Minneapolis. And they've obviously gotten Bovino out and perhaps maybe change immigration policy in this city from a president that promised these deportations.
Well, I think that we recognize, and I think the administration recognizes, that the chaos in Minneapolis is because of Democrats and it's because of Democrat politicians. What they do is they create a situation that is impossible for ICE agents. So you have a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state who, as a matter of policy, does not allow local law enforcement to work with federal immigration officials. So what happens is these crowds of agitators, spurned on by Democrat politicians who are calling the president Hitler, who are calling ICE the Gestapo, who are portraying themselves as some sort of weird left-wing resistance against what they ostensibly see as tyranny, come out there and assault and harass and dox ICE agents who are carrying out lawful arrests. You saw the video just a second ago. You have crowds of agitators surrounding ICE agents, blowing whistles, screaming, pounding on trash cans, making as much noise and chaos as possible. And then you have somebody who comes in who is armed, and you have every right to be armed. You have the right to bring a gun to a protest. But what you don't have the right to do is to obstruct a lawful federal immigration proceedings here. And certainly not whenever you're armed. So you put these ICE agents in a scene of total chaos. And what ends up happening, what inevitably will happen, is some tragedy just like this. And I think the left is using this, and they knew that they could use a tragedy like this to try to get the president to back off of his immigration enforcement and try to get Republicans to back down. I think it should be our goal right now to not give in to the left, to continue doing what we said we were going to do, and to continue carrying out the law.
Yeah, we don't know why Bovino is gone, but it certainly felt like something went a little soft today in the wake of this second shooting. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see exactly what happens and the details of it. Bovino, that news is pretty new. Congressman Brandon Gill, thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, Liz Collin is an independent journalist at Alpha News in Minneapolis and joins us tonight. Liz, good to have you back on. Greg Bovino leaving Minneapolis is the latest news this evening. It feels like Republicans are kind of starting to cave on this in a way. From your perspective, does it feel like this mob that has made all of this noise to try and push away basic immigration policy in this country, is that mob starting to win this fight?
You know, you can't help but think that after all the developments today, Rob. We saw chaos again last night in Minneapolis. There was more vandalism to a Minneapolis Hilton hotel property, vehicles outside damaged by rioters, a weekend of chaos that continued in the wake of the shooting death of Alex Pretti on Saturday. That shooting is under investigation at both the state and federal level, as President Trump has also acknowledged. And you're right, we also know that Mayor Jacob Frey, Governor Tim Walz, they spoke with President Trump today in an attempt to find some common ground, it seems, in a sense. Law enforcement, labor services here in Minnesota, they've called an emergency state and federal summit on immigration enforcement to establish what state law enforcement leaders call clear, coordinated policies for enforcement and detainers, saying that what's taking place now is unsustainable. But we've had this groundswell, this growing tracking system that's been ongoing actually for months that we've been talking about over at Alpha News, and there seems to be no crackdown on those efforts as these ICE agents have been followed and doxxed and have faced these threats out in the streets. And that is something that continues. So a lot of movement today. But, you know, I'm hearing from my sources on local and state level here that the cops are kind of saddened to see this retreat, but they're also saying that this was not sustainable and they wanted more cooperation from the very beginning.
Well, it was either going to go one of two ways, right? It was either going to be that they were going to declare insurrection and go after the people that have manufactured all of this chaos, which is exactly what it is. It's only happening in one place, even though this is not where most of the deportations are happening. It's happening because of rhetoric coming from your politicians, and instead they're getting friendly calls from the White House, and Bovino, it appears, may even potentially be completely out of his position. We haven't confirmed that yet, but we're hearing indications that could be the case. It's extraordinary, and it's, I guess, a sign that if you don't like a federal law in this country, if you create enough chaos and riot enough, maybe they'll just stop implementing it where you are, which is a hell of a message to send to some of the worst people that have been doing this in your state for a long time now. I want to talk about this Signal chat story that came up this weekend, and the idea that potentially there are people inside your local government in Minnesota that are coordinating with the people that have created all of this chaos. What do you know about that?
Yeah, this is something we've been talking about for months. State legislators signed up on these anti-ICE groups helping to coordinate these efforts to dox, to follow ICE agents. These stories we were reporting over at Alpha News for quite some time. It seems now that the FBI says that they are investigating these groups, but this has been going on for quite some time. There's been these trainings that happen, these whistles that are distributed. You can go ahead and learn how to block traffic and what to do when you go ahead and, you know, come face to face with an ICE agent. This has been very out in the open, but yet we're not finding anyone who's actually gone after these groups or has tried to break them up.
That's something else. Liz, Collin, thanks so much. We appreciate your time. We'll see what develops as we go through the week here. Thank you.
We will.
Coming up here after the break, Dean Phillips is a former Democrat congressman from Minnesota we talk to from time to time. He has been outraged by what he's seen in recent weeks from Homeland Security and from ICE, and it looks like his side is winning here. He's up next.
Here we go again. Everyone wants to know. So here it is.
Melania, rated PG, exclusively in theaters Friday.
Immuno 150 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you, waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Bat.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
All right, welcome back. Former Congressman Dean Phillips is a moderate Democrat. We've spoken to about various issues on this program, try and see what the other side thinks. He used to represent a district in Minnesota in Congress. He offered this take over the weekend. A sad irony is that ICE has now killed more people in Minneapolis than the illegal criminals would have. This isn't about what side you're on or if you're red or blue. This is an American disaster fueled by corrupt, deranged incompetence, and it's time we all stand up. Former Congressman Dean Phillips joins us now. Sir, good to have you on. I want to understand this from the other side because I clearly don't at this point. Give me your perspective on what we've seen in Minneapolis for the last month.
Well, what we've seen, Rob, is a national tragedy. And before the commercial break, you referenced that my side appears to be winning today. And I'm troubled by that because my side is all of our side, American side. And we've all been losing. And what I've been calling for, Rob, and I think everybody watching, wants to see the federal law enforced. I believe, like most Democrats, that if you break the law, you should face consequences. But what's happening in Minneapolis is most of the laws that are being broken are basic American rights. And that's what I've been objecting to from the very get-go. The tactics of ICE, not the strategy, not the objective, the tactics led by Greg Bovino and Kristi Noem have been an unmitigated, unconstitutional, un-American disaster that has resulted in the deaths of 2 white Americans who are exercising their right to gather and protest. And if you're a gun owner, if you care about the Constitution...
Yeah. How have the tactics
and that's what
changed?
I wanted to say to everybody watching.
How different are they from 15 years ago? How is ICE operating differently than they were before, other than the fact that they're just being attacked by a riled-up crowd of people?
Well, first of all, they have been riled up, and I concur that there have been politicians that could have taken the temperature down rather than put fuel on the fire, but that's not what I'm getting at. Tom Homan coming to Minnesota today is the best news that Americans could hope for. Yes, he's reviled by those on the far left, but the man is a man of experience, I think, who's going to right the ship. And I think what we need is leadership. Kristi Noem is not competent to lead this entity. Greg Bovino has demonstrated time and time again when he has gone into communities an inability to be constitutional and protect Americans' rights. I'm talking about American citizens, Rob, who have been asked for their papers. Police officers have been asked for their papers showing their legal citizenship because they have an accent or their skin color is not white. That is repulsive, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. That's what I've been focused on, not
I hear you, and I don't want to interject in you too hard here, but for a second, so we have, and obviously there are mistakes made. I point back to again and again, and I think that they're somewhat forgivable. When you dump 20 million people into a country, the process of removing those people is going to be a big frickin' mess. So I mean, they talk about being set up to fail. If you run on closing the border and deporting illegals after 20 million people were brought in, you got a hell of a job on your hands. Of course, there's going to be occasionally you're going to find somebody that is an American citizen. Of course, a mistake is going to happen every now and again, but by and large, this is a pretty decent operation, and I don't think anybody is dying in the streets the way we've seen from 2 people in the last few weeks. If they're not ginned up by psychotic rhetoric from the left that's telling them that this is the Gestapo, I don't think anybody is dead either.
Well, look, reasonable people can disagree. All I'm saying is you're right. It is very difficult to remove that many people. I was critical of Joe Biden's policy during his presidency. I was critical of it when I was running for president myself. I've been to the southern border. I take offense when I hear Congressman Gill just moments ago talk about what he thinks he knows is going on in Minnesota. I don't think he's been there. I was there during both killings. I'm a Minnesotan. I know what's happening in my community. I'm also reasonable in common sense. I want to see the federal law executed. I do not want to see American citizens executed. Therein lies my problem. These new ICE agents, many of them poorly trained, recent recruits, led by incompetence. That's my only contention. President Trump, mark my words.
Why is it only happening in Minneapolis?
I think their tactics led by, well, Greg Bovino has led a trail of problems in communities in which he has led ICE. Kristi Noem has no reason to be in her position. I think finally President Trump has been advised by people who are smarter than those two about what's really happening. Mark my words, President Trump does not yield to Democrats who say you got to get rid of somebody. He does yield to those around him who he trusts. And I believe that Kristi Noem will be gone and Greg Bovino out of Minneapolis soon because they are the problem, not the ICE agents. It's the leadership of ICE. And these two killings of American citizens, the violation of our constitutional rights, everybody watching this show right now should be concerned about. That's the part of the story I'm trying to bring light to. And I hope you understand this is not about Democrats standing in the way of federal policy. It is Democrats standing up for, in this case, at least me.
You made an interesting point there that Trump would not capitulate to the left, which is what I was so disturbed by today. It felt like he had softened after this second killing. Do you believe that the president will continue on with the mandate of the deportation of all illegals in this country? Or do you think that'll soften as well? That's, I think, what a lot of people that voted for him are very worried that something has changed.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm from Minnesota. We believe there are maybe 100,000 plus undocumented people in Minnesota. The state of Texas, from where Mr. Gill, your recent guest, he represents, we believe there are over 2 million undocumented people in Texas. Yeah. It's interesting to me
most of the work's
that
happening.
We'd have 3,000. Yeah. It astounds to me that we'd have 3,000 ICE agents in Minnesota to go after 100,000. Why is this not happening in Texas, Florida, other places? Most Democrats, frankly, want to see a complete recalibration of immigration law that we agree on. We can't have seamless borders. We can't allow criminals.
Democrats want an open border.
We have to get rid of them. Not well. I'm a Democrat. I represent millions.
You're reasonable, but well, I agree with you, but I don't think I think your larger party had a hell of a scam in that last presidency.
All right.
I got to leave it there, unfortunately.
And that's why I tried to call it out. Hey, Rob, I appreciate the time.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Former Congressman Dean Phillips, appreciate you. Thank you. All right, up here after the break, the woke NBA takes a strong position on immigration.
It's bizarre, sad games I've ever been a part of.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sono Bello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sono Bello.
I had some loose, wiggly skin, and it is no longer there thanks to Sono Bello.
Our expert surgeons use micro laser technology to safely target and remove your diet-resistant fat and tighten loose skin permanently.
I wanted the results of the tummy tuck, but not the downtime. I had a 10 out of 10 experience.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform, and we're proud to be America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
In just one visit, Sono Bello got rid of my love handles and my belly fat.
Do you want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach. Call Sono Bello. Get in there for your free consultation. Do this for you.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today.
He's bleeding. Okay. Again.
Children account for 75% of choking deaths.
That's why I recommend everyone have a life vac in your home, car, or business.
The life vac is simple to use. Just place, push, and pull.
Its suction removes an obstruction out of the airway quickly, saving a life.
If you use your life vac for an emergency, we'll replace it for free. Order now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas, it's good medicine.
Doctors' Preferred Liver Defense is doctor-developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple-tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctors' Preferred. Better science, better results.
As a cardiologist, when I put my patients on a statin to reduce cholesterol, I also tell them it can deplete their CoQ10 levels. I recommend taking Cunol CoQ10. Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Honoring the memory of Mr. Floyd with a moment of silence as we stand together, united to combat racism and inequality.
Please join us in honoring the life and memory of Alex Pretti with a moment of silence.
Okay, woke NBA commemorating the death of this 37-year-old in Minneapolis with a moment of silence. Sunday's game, the Minnesota Timberwolves game with people yelling out F-Ice all throughout the stadium. Again, Minneapolis. NBA Players Association saying following the news of yet another fatal shooting in Minneapolis, yes, that's how they put it, just like an MSNBC headline, a city that has been on the forefront of the fight against injustices, NBA players can no longer remain silent. Knicks player Karl Anthony Towns used to play for Minnesota, says it's heartbreaking to witness. Pacers guard Tyrese Halliburton, I didn't like hearing this, Alex Pretti was murdered. You also had the Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr and their star player Steph Curry, both playing in Minnesota over the weekend, saying this after the game. Take a listen.
It's one of the most bizarre, sad games I've ever been a part of. We could tell they were struggling with everything that's been going on and what the city has been through. So it was very sad. It was a sad night.
I just know there's a lot of heavy hearts. Minneapolis community. Yesterday was rough. It's been rough. Protests that were going on downtown. It was amazing to watch.
Jon Root is a sports and cultural commentator. We also have Jack Brewer with us, former Minnesota Viking and chairman of the Jack Brewer Foundation. Good to have you both here. Jack, what's the real reason that there is so much fury over basic immigration policies being enforced? Fury that has stirred up to the point where we have people getting killed because they're interjecting themselves into the middle of immigration enforcement.
It's deep. You know, they've gotten to the point where they feel invincible in Minnesota. You know, they realize that their entire voting base is being deported. You know, in Minnesota, they think they're above the law. I mean, you saw what they did in George Floyd. It was the same situation. They burnt that entire city down, man. And so to sit there and watch and to think that you're going to justify somebody running to beat up a police officer and law enforcement officers with a gun in his pocket. You know, in fact, every man should be telling their child. As a matter of fact, if you look at the response from the victim's dad, the guy who got shot, his dad told him not to go in there and that if he did that, this could happen to him. And so he knew what he was doing, man. The Bible tells us, honor thy mother and the father, listen to your parents, right? This is the same situation. People that are taken up for Minnesota are the same people that were taken up for Sodom and Gomorrah when they got destroyed. They brought this evilness upon themselves, Rob.
Yeah. It's surreal when you look at the fact that, I mean, it's, you know, John, you had a guy that said, you know what, I'm going to go get between federal law enforcement and the job that they have to do, which is a job they've always done in this country. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring a gun. I'm going to put a gun in my pocket as I go pick a fight, you know, with federal law enforcement. That's unbelievable. Even more unbelievable is that on the sports perspective, that it's just unanimous from the NBA that this was, that immigration enforcement can't happen in this country any longer, I guess. It's open borders NBA.
Yeah, because essentially when the Timberwolves are going to honor not only Alex Pretti, honoring Renee Good, you are now saying that these people are heroes that deserve to be honored, and that makes law enforcement the villains. And they all are coming together, the NBA Players Association, Timberwolves as an organization, different players, they're saying this is murder. You have to accept that narrative, and we're going to basically trash on law enforcement, including the people that help keep their arenas safe. And you're going to cancel a game that is all virtue signaling, and just 9 miles down the road, the Minnesota Wild of the NHL are able to play a game, and that's okay. I mean, people are sick and tired of the NBA. That's why a lot of people have stopped watching. And then when someone like Steve Kerr, it's interesting, he didn't call it murder. He ended up saying we're in an information war, and media is trying to divide us. But of course, he's not going to call out the Democrats, CNN, MSNBC, and the people that are actually dividing us.
And the people that have stirred up this army of lunatics to be out there trying to get in the way of immigration enforcement, which is really the sad part is that you have a lot of really gullible people that have become kind of the pawns of all of this. I want to talk NFL just for a second, Jack. We got the Seahawks at the Patriots. That's going to be the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. The president says he's going to skip it. He loves going to big events like this, as we know. He's going to skip it. He says it's going to be too woke. Green Day, Bad Bunny apparently is going to wear a dress as a nod to LGBTQ icons. Sure doesn't seem like football to me. It doesn't seem like an NFL halftime show. What do you think, Jack?
Man, we have lost our mind. It's so sad for me to see. I mean, I grew up, I'm a professional athlete. We were looked at as masculine. If they would have done this and it was one of my teams going to a game or playing the playoffs or the Super Bowl, we would, as players, we would have stood up against it. Now you're allowing our little boys to be told they can wear dresses, man. When we're in a fatherless crisis, we got 18.4 million fatherless kids, and this is the type of message that the gladiators of our day are passing to our children. Think about that, Rob, the impact that that's having on our society, man, where these boys are growing up confused. That's why in Minnesota, they're acting a fool like that, because mentally they got issues in their mind. We've created this mental health crisis by promoting this unrighteousness across the board, man.
Yeah, we got a serious culture problem, and we're going to have a guy in a dress as the Super Bowl halftime show. The world is going to love seeing that. I got to leave it there. I'm out of time. Jack Brewer, Jon Root, good to have you guys. Thanks so much. Damage left behind by this massive storm, including how I got stuck. Next, with the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy.
Are you ready to make your dream kitchen a reality? With high-quality cabinets, accents, and accessories designed for all styles and all budgets, Cabinets to Go is the place to go. Get the craftsmanship, styles, and features you want at a price you can't find anywhere else. And right now, you can get it all at 0% for 48 months. We'll even help you imagine it before installation with a free 3D design. Visit us at any one of our beautiful showrooms nationwide to get started today. Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
The future of real estate is here. Real estate tokenization turns property ownership into digital tokens on the blockchain, allowing assets to be divided, traded, and managed with ease. Through fractional ownership, stop trading stocks, start trading skyscrapers. For the first time, you can buy, sell, and trade ownership in income-producing real estate as easily as a share of Apple stock. Your portfolio's next power play is here. TheInvestorsPool.com.
Oh no! Our water line broke. It could cost a fortune to get a contractor to come fix it, and it's not covered by homeowners insurance.
That's why you should have HomeServe.
It's Tom Rusin, CEO of HomeServe.
When your water line breaks, HomeServe sends a qualified contractor to fix it and pays for the covered repairs.
With HomeServe, the American dream of owning a home doesn't need to be a nightmare.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-833-559-6598 or visit homeserve.com.
A new year brings new threats, and Cyberman's ready for every one of them. While hackers plot their next move, Cyberman's already there, protecting families, businesses, and governments before danger can strike. This year, protect what matters most with easy-to-use, award-winning protection. With PCmatic, you get American-made protection that's faster, smarter, and stronger. Start 2026 with confidence. Visit PCmatic.com today.
Pain doesn't just hurt, it limits you, and it keeps you from doing the things that matter most. I know because I've been there. I work hard, I'm active, and I love being with my family outdoors. But what I've noticed is that life never waits for the pain to disappear. So let's start the new year off with a Signal Relief patch. Take advantage of our 20% discount and get your patch today.
As a surgeon, if it can help decrease that pain, short-term or long-term, why not try it?
I absolutely recommend the Signal Relief patch for anybody going through, it could be anything.
I'm wearing a Signal Relief patch 24/7.
This Signal patch, it's literally changed my life.
When I put this patch on my ankle, I was getting relief.
In a recent study, 85% of people felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. We all hurt, whether it's our neck, back, knees, or shoulders. The fact is, the patch works.
I really love Balance of Nature.
There's so many vegetables and so many fruits.
I love everything about it.
It's just such a phenomenal product. So, got to keep doing it.
Lock in 50% off for 1 year. This offer ends Friday.
All right, welcome back. We don't talk too much about the weather, but we gotta talk about this one, this deadly, historic winter storm that just shot all through the country over this weekend, carving a destructive path, 2,300 miles long across. I mean, it hit like 40 different states, a quarter of a billion people impacted in our country. Over 1 million power outages have been reported. Ice took down a lot of power lines in many southern states. There have been at least 25 deaths reported from this monster storm. Southeastern states, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi. This thing got way far south, all hit with hundreds of thousands of outages from high winds, heavy snow, fall, freezing rain, cold temperatures. This is actually video from my house. Look at how high the snow was, the drift up against the door. I got snowed in pretty good here. The Northeast, buried. Look at some of the video. 20 inches of snow in Boston, the largest storm New England has seen in 4 years. Amazing stuff. We've got the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, with us tonight to talk about this. Sir, good to have you on. A massive storm, and what are the real problem areas you guys are focused on right now?
So first off, Rob, I'm happy to see that your door opens in. Mine going out opens out, and I couldn't open it up. We had so much snow in New Jersey. Right? Yes, well, so, we're tracking all modes of transportation, but first FAA, we see over 5,000 cancellations, 18,000 delays today. Yesterday was the worst day of cancellations and delays since March of 2020 when we had the COVID shutdown. So yesterday was significant. Today is better. We hope by Wednesday we're back to normal operations. But across this 40 swath of states where this gargantuan storm has hit, again, in the South, we had a lot of ice. And so there's even warnings right now in Oklahoma for black ice, still recommendations to stay off the roads. As you get to the Northeast, we deal with snow a little better, whether it's in New York or Massachusetts or Maine. They navigate snow a little bit better. The roads are getting plowed, but if you want to know about the roadways, go to highways.dot.gov. You can check in and see what your local conditions are to see if there's a recommendation whether you stay home, stay put, or whether you go out and travel.
Right. I mean, and tell us a little bit about the trees, the ice-covered trees. There was exploding trees. You had power lines. I mean, the power of ice. I mean, when you dump an inch of ice onto everything, the weight of that is just devastating. And I think they're having a lot of the mid-states and along the Atlantic and Tennessee, places like that, North Carolina. Talk about that.
Yeah, so a half an inch of ice will add 500 pounds to a power line. In a lot of places, there was over an inch of ice. So that's a tremendous amount of weight. A lot of those power lines have gone down. Trees, same thing. It's a lot of weight for trees to withstand, and you see trees coming down as well. By the way, it's not just ice and snow. A lot of trees covering roadways, as well as our DOT crews are out there trying to clear the roadways. You mentioned, you're right, we topped out at about 1 million people being impacted by power outages. Right now, we're down to about 700. So the linemen who pre-position to places of, disaster, if you will, whether it's a hurricane or in a storm like this, to hit the road and get those lines back up and operational and giving people power. Kudos to them. They've done fantastic work getting people back online. But again, this is just the nature of a massive storm like this. We got to weather it. We got to know there's going to be some disruption and let our critical teams, our critical assets, get out there and repair the roads and repair the power lines, puts us in a way better place. And you know what? A lot of people heeded the warnings. They hunkered down. They stayed put. So again, by the way, we have our truck drivers, our snowplow drivers, our salt drivers. They're working big overtime hours, making sure the roads were. Kudos to them and people.
It looked like
letting them do their work.
It looked like it was just going to be a nasty storm, and there's already indications potentially of another big one coming for the Northeast this next weekend here in about 5-6 days too. Yeah.
One other point, Rob, as we look at this, you have this storm, but also in the south we have freezing temperatures until midweek, and in the north it's going to be till the end of the week. And so as we look at trying to get rid of this ice and snow, it becomes even that much more of a problem, which is why this storm not just powerful but longer lasting.
Yeah. In December, I want to get to just Minnesota with you just for a second here, because it's kind of the epicenter of all the news in this country right now outside of weather news. In December, DOT, under you, found through an audit that a third of non-domiciled commercial driver's licenses were issued illegally in this state of Minnesota, which we have found to be just a very corrupt, very fraud-ridden state. Wanted to ask if that investigation is still going on tonight, as Minnesota is kind of under the radar here.
So we do the investigation, and then we give time for compliance, 30 days. And so with Minnesota, again, just let me explain, a non-domiciled CDL, if you go from one state, let's say Wisconsin to Texas, you're not a resident of Texas, so you can get a non-domiciled commercial driver's license. As the left does, they've contorted this law and now have allowed illegals to come into the country and get a non-domiciled CDL. So we see individuals who are not qualified to get a commercial driver's license, a third of them getting licenses in Minnesota. So we go through a time frame. The statute requires this to allow Minnesota or California to comply with our rules. And then if they don't, we start pulling money. California went through this. We pulled $160 million from California, and that's just phase one. We'll go with more dollar pulls and potentially take away their ability to issue commercial driver's licenses. But Minnesota hasn't gone through that 30-day time frame yet.
What a broken state that is. The 100%. Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. Michelle Obama complaining again. Up next.
People would be like, well, how do you know what to do in this role? You now see me as just Barack Obama's wife.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Bat.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our restoration guarantee and $1 million protection package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
Why are so many dogs dying before their time? In my experience, great health starts with great food. That's why I created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It contains powerful canine superfoods that directly support your dog's digestion, skin and coat, mobility, and so much more. And it's air dried. That means cooked low and slow, no high heat. We have thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get up to 50% off with our special TV offer. Go to badlandsranch.com/TV. That's badlandsranch.com/TV.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Michelle Obama sure has a lot to complain about regarding hitching her wagon to a two-term American president. She's complaining again on a podcast. Take a listen.
People would be like, well, how do you know what to do in this role? And to me, it was clear that, oh my God, you don't know anything about what I did before I came here. I went to Princeton and Harvard. I mean, I practiced law. I was an assistant to the mayor in Chicago. All of that just disappeared in the course of this whole election. And you now see me as just Barack Obama's wife.
Marriage is not going very well, if you can tell, for Barack and Michelle. And she seems like she's a little bit bitter, a little jealous, I'd say. She could have been an upper middle class attorney, but she had to settle for being the first lady, now worth $100 million. I feel bad for her. And finally tonight, Ilhan Omar and her husband Tim Mynett are in the spotlight. DOJ and Congress investigating the skyrocketing net worth via her husband's companies. These two were so obviously corrupt. Through business ventures involving wine and cannabis, Mynett and his business partner William Haler, leaving a trail of fraud allegations tied to various companies. We have a lot of fraud in the Somali community. Looks like she found a guy that's no stranger to fraud himself. A lawsuit filed by local South Dakota cannabis growers alleging Mynett and Haler formed Badlands Ventures in order to defraud plaintiffs by soliciting them for purported investments with the intention of stealing and or misappropriating most of the money. After that, Haler and Mynett faced further alleged fraud related to a wine business, which saw a massive valuation jump in 1 year from $50,000 to around $5 million. That same thing happened to one of Mynett's venture capital firms as well, called Rose Lake Capital. It all sounds very Hunter Biden-esque, doesn't it? Ilhan and her third husband looking more and more like a fraud love story. It would be a match made in heaven, wouldn't it? Melania Trump has a new film out, and she is the cover of Newsmax magazine. And that is up next.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Northeast electricity rates are too high. We have two choices: finish the offshore generators under construction or buy hydropower from Canada at a higher price. We need American energy dominance. President Trump's goal.
I will cut your energy and electricity prices in half, 50%, 50.
The generators are almost done. Tell the Department of the Interior. Finish America's offshore generators now. American Energy. America first.
Introducing Stogo, the only apparel with adjustable medical-grade support, engineered with high-strength cables that reinforce the body, designed to help you overcome injuries, minimize pain, and regain the confidence to get back out there. Learn more at Stoco.com.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. Attention! If you or a loved one were implanted with a Bard Power Port device and later experienced serious complications, call right now. Lawsuits have been filed which allege these devices have inherent design and manufacturing flaws. Call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation.
Call 800-781-6314.
And finally tonight, we don't get to talk about the First Lady, Melania Trump, too often on this show, despite how she has been portrayed by a very brutal media toward her. She has had quite the impact while in office with the president. Melania is a big advocate for the Take It Down Act, outlawing the distribution of non-consensual, intimate imagery, including AI-generated porn with the faces of real people on it. She also does a lot for kids as well, a soft spot there. Kids without homes, including her project Fostering the Future Together. Newsmax magazine's January edition, Melania Trump's Soft Power. There is the cover right there, highlighting her accomplishments in her husband's second term, 1 year so far. And Ken Chandler is the executive editor of the magazine and joins us now. Ken, good to see you. Tell us more about January's edition.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, just the fact that Melania is on the cover is a newsworthy event in itself, because all the traditional magazines, the left-wing magazines, the mainstream magazines, they've just refused to put her on the cover. You know, they couldn't wait to get a Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton on the cover of their magazines. Yeah. Melania, not so much. So, you know, first of all, this is a rarity that she's made the cover of a magazine, and we're very proud to have put her on there, because she has carved out for herself an extraordinary, powerful role behind the scenes in the White House.
Yeah, she has. And isn't this the greatest irony of the whole thing, is that you finally have a first lady that belongs on a magazine, that's yes. got the kind of look that belongs on the cover of a magazine, and she's the one that nobody would ever put on a magazine. I mean, if Vogue, if, you know, Cosmopolitan, if they actually wanted to sell magazines, which they haven't done in a very long time, they would probably try putting on somebody that looks like Melania Trump.
That's right. I mean, she's a beautiful woman. She's extraordinarily bright. She speaks numerous languages. I mean, she's been a huge help to the president when he's been traveling in Europe, because Melania can speak to some of these world leaders in their own language, because she, you know, she came from Slovenia, which was part of Yugoslavia. But, you know, she's dedicated herself to making a difference behind the scenes. You know, she wrote a personal letter to Vladimir Putin, urging Putin to return children that had been kidnapped from Ukraine, from their Ukrainian homes by the Russians. That was successful. She's made the welfare of children a big campaign, and she's had a lot of success behind the scenes.
It is something else. It's a great story. Melania Trump on the cover. Ken Chandler, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you.
All right. Stay informed with Newsmax magazine. You can subscribe today, get a Newsmax hat. We make pretty good hats here. They look pretty good, too. Also, bonus gifts as well. You see the information right there on the screen. Finity's up next. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Have a good one.